The Golden Anchor Tavern sat just outside Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton, a place where Marines released their tension with loud laughter, clinking glasses, and stories of boot camp battles. It was a Friday night, and the place was alive. Pool balls cracking, country music blasting, boots stomping on wooden floors. But in a quiet corner near the back wall, away from the clamor, sat a woman alone at a table, wearing a simple black jacket, her hair tied back neatly, her posture calm and collected. Nobody paid attention to her, just another civilian-looking woman sipping tea instead of whiskey, writing something in a notebook. Her name was Admiral Evelyn Cross, commander of the entire Pacific Naval Forces and the youngest person to ever achieve 4-star rank in the Navy. But no one in the tavern knew that. She wasn't wearing her uniform. No rivens, no medals, no entourage. She preferred anonymity when she needed silence. And tonight, she was reviewing classified material under the guise of writing in a journal. Her aura was quiet, almost invisible, but powerful beneath the surface, like the ocean she commanded. Across the room, however, there was someone who definitely liked attention. Sergeant Troy Maddox, a Marine whose reputation was as loud as his voice, was on his third drink, bragging about how he had single-handedly carried his platoon during their last training op. His buddies cheered and encouraged him. Though most of them knew the truth, Troy was skilled, but his ego was bigger than his achievements. When he lost a bet in a pool game, he stomped back toward the bar for another drink. But the path was narrow, and he didn't care who was in his way. As he walked, he brushed past the woman sitting alone, and his shoulder slammed aggressively into hers, nearly knocking her tea off the table. Evelyn didn't flinch, but she slowly raised her gaze from the notebook. Her eyes met Troy's back as he continued walking, not even looking at her. Just a shove. Just a Marine roughhousing like Marines do. But then he turned around, realizing he hadn't gotten the reaction he expected. "Hey," he shouted over the music, pointing at her. "If you're sitting in the walkway, pay attention. Don't make people trip." She stared at him with a calm, unervingly steady expression. "You didn't trip," she said calmly. "You shoved me." His buddies heard it and immediately made, "Ooh, sounds like high schoolers during a schoolyard fight." Troy puffed out his chest. "You calling me a liar?" he asked, stepping closer. "No," she replied softly. "I'm calling you irresponsible." That one sentence cut deeper than an insult. Marines prided themselves on discipline. The word irresponsible was the one thing Troy never wanted to be called, especially not by a stranger, and especially not by a woman who wasn't intimidated by him. He stepped even closer, towering over her. "You got a smart mouth for a little lady sitting by herself," he growled. "What are you, some kind of officer's wife trying to sound tough?" "No," she said, closing her notebook. "But I do expect manners." Troy leaned forward. "And what if I don't feel like showing manners?" At that moment, the air shifted. The bartender froze. A few Marines turned from their beers. Everyone sensed tension. Evelyn slowly stood, now looking him directly in the eyes. She wasn't tall, but she held herself with an imposing posture, one that came from decades of authority, command, and combat experience hidden beneath a civilian jacket. "You should walk away," she said simply, "before you regret this." Troy laughed, loud and mocking. "Lady, I'm a Marine. I don't walk away." She raised an eyebrow. "You may be a Marine," she said quietly, "but you don't outrank me." That line confused him. Outrank? Who did she think she was? A commander? A colonel's wife? A civilian contractor with too much confidence? He smirked. "Outrank you? I outrank this whole place." It took exactly 3 seconds before the entire tavern erupted into murmurs, because behind Troy, the tavern door swung open, and 4 Navy officers walked in wearing crisp dress uniforms. They scanned the room until they found her. And then, they snapped into a perfect salute. The entire tavern went silent. Troy blinked, confused. The lieutenant stepped forward. "Admiral Cross, ma'am. We apologize for the delay. The briefing room is ready whenever you are." Admiral Cross? The Admiral Cross? The Admiral Cross whose name echoed through every Marine base. The one who commanded the entire Pacific Fleet. The one Marines whispered about like she was a legend carved from steel. Troy's face drained of color as the realization hit him, like a brick to the chest. He didn't shove a random woman. He shoved the highest-ranking naval officer in the region. He shoved the woman who had authority over entire armadas, who briefed the Joint Chiefs, who commanded respect from. Four-star generals that he shoved the most powerful person any Marine could stand in front of without a president present. Every Marine stood at attention immediately. Glasses stopped midair. Even the music seemed to bow in respect. Troy's knees nearly buckled. Admiral Cross didn't yell. She didn't show anger. She simply let the silence punish him harder than any fist could. She leaned slightly toward him. "Do you still believe you outrank this place, Sergeant?" He swallowed, so hard his throat clicked. "And no, ma'am." "Good," she replied. "Because a Marine's strength isn't measured by how loudly he shouts or how hard he shoves someone smaller. It's measured by his discipline. And tonight, yours was missing." Troy's voice cracked. "Mom, I didn't know who you were." "That," Evelyn said, "is exactly the problem." She stepped closer, her voice low enough only he could hear. "A respectful Marine would treat any stranger with dignity, whether she's an admiral or a janitor." The words hit him harder than any punishment ever had. Troy lowered his head. "Mom, I apologize." She studied him for a long moment. "You apologize to me because you know my rank." Then she pointed around the tavern. "But will you apologize to everyone you disrespect when you think no one's watching?" His eyes filled with shame. "Yes, ma'am, I will." She nodded. "Good. Because the Navy and the Marine Corps serve the same nation. And we honor the same values." Troy stood frozen, stiff as a statue, as the Admiral turned, picked up her notebook, and walked toward her officers. But before she left the tavern, she paused in the doorway and looked back at him. "You have potential, Sergeant Maddox. Don't waste it on ego." Then she left. The moment the door closed, the entire tavern erupted in whispers. "Dude, you shoved Admiral Cross? You're dead, man. She commands the whole Pacific. You better start digging your own grave." Troy sat down, shaking, his heart pounding. But beneath the humiliation, something more powerful settled inside him. Respect and gratitude, because she hadn't punished him. She had taught him. The next day, Sergeant Troy Maddox walked into his platoon briefing room and requested extra leadership training sessions. He volunteered for discipline workshops. He apologized to every Marine he had disrespected in the last year. He became sharper, more focused, more disciplined. Months later, he earned a promotion recommendation, and when the general asked him what changed him, Troy answered softly, "An admiral reminded me who I'm supposed to be." The story spread across bases like wildfire. Every Marine learned it. Every sailor repeated it. And it became a legend across the Pacific. Never pick a fight in a tavern. You never know if the person you're shoving rules the entire Navy. If you enjoyed this powerful story, don't forget to subscribe to Grow for Justice. Hit the like button and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Your support helps us bring more inspiring and unforgettable stories your way.